From the moment we learn to speak, we are told a story of balance, of fairness, of scales that never lie. Justice is blind, they said. The law treats everyone equally. The good will be rewarded, the bad will be punished. But when two men commit the same crime and walk two different paths, one into prison and the other into freedom bought by wealth, the myth begins to crack. If justice were truly blind, why does it seize wealth, power, and privilege so clearly? If it were absolute, why does it change with borders, rulers, and time? Justice, as it has been taught to us, is not an eternal truth. It is not written into the fabric of the universe. It is a human construction, fragile, mutable, and deeply political. This realization is not the death of morality, but its awakening. It forces us to look closer, to question who defines justice and in whose interests it operates. Aristotle, centuries ago, saw what modern societies still refuse to admit. Justice is not a single truth, but a principle of distribution, shaped by power, purpose, and context. It is not perfection, it is proportion. And because it is proportion, it can never be perfectly fair. 1. Justice as a human invention. The comforting belief that justice is eternal and unchanging is one of humanity's greatest myths. Every civilization writes its own version of fairness and carves it into law. What is illegal in one country is celebrated in another. What was punishable yesterday becomes permissible tomorrow. Justice bends, stretches, and reshapes itself with every new constitution, every ruler, every age. Why then does the myth survive? Because it serves a purpose. If people believe the system is fair, they do not question it. They obey. They endure. They accept their suffering as temporary, trusting that the scales will tip back on their own. This is what psychologists call the just world fallacy, the comforting illusion that the universe itself keeps a moral balance sheet. It tells the poor that patience will bring reward, the oppressed that time will bring fairness, the powerless that justice will one day prevail. But it is a narcotic belief, designed to pacify, not to liberate. A society built on the illusion of fairness does not rebel. It endures quietly. And so injustice becomes easier to maintain, not through force, but through faith. 2. Aristotle's challenge: justice as distribution and correction. Aristotle broke through the illusion. For him, justice was not divine, not cosmic, not perfect, but human. He divided it into two forms: distributive justice and corrective justice. Distributive justice concerns how society allocates resources, honors, and power. It is not about equal shares for all, but about giving to each according to their due, their role, merit, and contribution. Corrective justice, on the other hand, deals with righting wrongs, restoring balance when harm has been done. Yet both are bound by human judgment, and judgment is never pure. It is shaped by class, power, and circumstance. The soldier who is praised, the worker who is underpaid, the defendant who cannot afford a lawyer, all live under the same word justice, yet feel its hand differently. The law claims neutrality, but wealth tilts the scales before the trial even begins. This inequality, Aristotle observed, is part of physis, the natural differences in circumstance and ability. But when law enters the picture, it does not erase these differences. It amplifies them. Injustice, then, is not an accident of the system. It is a symptom of its design. 3. The shadows of justice. Aristotle also saw that justice casts shadows. The first shadow: justice serves the community, not the individual. A single person's suffering may be tolerated if it preserves order for the many. We see this every day: the eviction of a family for urban expansion, the imprisonment of dissenters for public stability. The second shadow: justice bends to power. Monarchies, aristocracies, democracies, each calls its own version of justice true. But history shows how easily the law becomes a mask for the interests of those who rule. Slavery, segregation, persecution, all once legal, all once called just. The third shadow: justice does not always align with morality. Legality can sanctify cruelty. Disobedience can be righteousness. The law is not always good. Sometimes It is only power dressed as fairness. These shadows reveal a truth that civilizations resist. Justice is not the opposite of injustice. It can be its disguise. 4. The psychology of belief. If justice is fragile, why do people still believe in it? Because belief in fairness is necessary for social order. The illusion keeps the system intact. Workers continue to labor, trusting that diligence will pay off. Citizens tolerate corruption, believing that the guilty will one day face punishment. Minorities endure oppression, convinced that progress is inevitable. The myth of justice is not sustained by truth, it is sustained by need. People would rather live with a comforting lie than face the chaos of an unfair world. The belief gives meaning to suffering, predictability to randomness, and stability to power. But comfort is not the same as clarity. To awaken is to see that justice was never perfect, that it never existed apart from those who shaped it, enforced it, and benefited from it. 5. Living without the illusion. What then should we do with this knowledge? Should we despair? Should we surrender to cynicism? Aristotle offers another path. Not despair, but responsibility. If the world will never be perfectly fair, then the task is not to wait for fairness, but to live excellently within imperfection. He called this arete, excellence, and telos, purpose. To live with arete is to cultivate skill, virtue, and strength so profound that you no longer depend on the system to grant you worth. To live with telos is to align your life with your own purpose rather than another's measure of success. Stop waiting for the world to become fair. Stop expecting institutions to balance the scales. Build your own leverage through excellence, courage, and clarity. The point is not to abandon justice, but to stop worshiping it as divine. Justice is not a god, it is a tool, powerful, necessary, but imperfect. Conclusion: the end of the blindfold. Justice will never be truly fair. Not in Athens, not in Rome, not in the modern world. But that is not tragedy. It is truth. To see justice clearly is not to destroy it, but to understand its limits. The myth of the blindfold was never about truth. It was about control. To open your eyes is to reclaim your agency. So the question remains: will you keep waiting for the scales to balance themselves? Or will you sharpen your own edge, live with purpose, and create proportion in a world that will never give it freely? Because once the illusion dies, clarity begins. And in that clarity, you may find something even greater than justice: freedom. Thank you for watching my video. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.